Oh, I'm sure I'll get to wear it at the Spring Fest. But it's kind of painful.
It's really jammed on there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so my last appointment brought chocolates. So take one. I don't. They're not going home to me. All right.
I haven't seen them on mine just yet.
Oh, sorry for the tardiness.
Literally just.
Is he just writing? Yep.
Still have a minute.
Okay. Do I still have a minute?
Right on time.
You didn't waste any time.
That's right.
There you go, ladies.
Those must be fancy. Like fancy shape.
Yeah. All right, we'd like to welcome you and call to order the study meeting of the West Valley City Council. It is March 14th. Pi Day. Let's see. And 4:30. We're in the multipurpose room of West Valley City Hall. We have all members of the council present. We have Councilman Fitzy Amanu on virtually, and in person we have Councilman Norfelt, Councilman Christensen, Councilman Whetstone, Councilman Harmon, Councilman Hoon, and myself. We're also joined at the table with our Assistant City Manager, Ms. Cottle, and our City Recorder, Ms. Kamick. We'll now go to our minutes of March 7th, and I'll turn it to the council for discussion or a motion on the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those passed unanimously. Our regular meeting this evening, do we have any changes?
The only change was just we moved that development agreement up from the consent to its standalone item per the council's request last week. So no other changes.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions or concerns with the agenda? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go to our communications and we'll start with Mr. Owensby. And I probably said it wrong, sorry.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, good, I have a question for you after. And he's in person. Standards of cover.
Thank you. I'm Mark Owensby, Deputy Chief, Fire Department. Thanks for the chance to share this with you. This is we wanted to do a brief summary of the standard of cover that we've been working towards for a long time. First, what is it? It's a national standard put out by the National Fire Protection Agency, the NFPA. And it's something that we've been hearing about for quite a while as they've really raised the bar on how fire departments rate themselves and their efficiency and effectiveness. And it's intimidating because it sets it pretty high and most departments aren't using it. In fact, there's only 2 others in Utah that are trying this. And so far they've not reached the standard, but the important thing is that they're reaching and they're trying to get better. And that was our goal as well. We didn't think that we'd be able to reach it at first, but we're looking for ways that we can get better and improve. Let's see. So let's see if I can get this. Okay, so the standard of cover, it really, like I said, it's a analysis is different to determine the effectiveness and efficiency of the fire department during emergency response as it relates to industry best practice and general expectations. The first part of the report that goes through trying to determine the effective response force, which is how many people do you need at the fire or whatever event it is, hazmat, immediately to get those critical tasks done. So pages 24 through 42, if you look at the bound one, it goes through a risk analysis to figure out what that effective force is for us. And like for house fire on page 29, you'll see that it's 17 to 21 people to get those critical needs done as fast as you can. And for apartment fire and a commercial fire, it's 20 to 25. So it's a lot of people, but the good news is we are actually meeting that standard right now. So we're pretty happy with that, that part of it. The second part, let's see. Well, the second part, first here's just a heat map of where the majority of our calls are. In those white sections is usually those are higher density housing. Some of them are busy intersections, that kind of thing. But this is the next part of it. It's how we measure our response times. And historically, we've done response time was from the time we're notified of an incident to the time we arrive. That's what we've considered our response time. This new standard, one of the ways that they've raised that bar is they've also included the alarm handling time or VEX time to process the call and get us en route. And really that makes sense because if you're dialing 911, when's the call start for you? It's when they're dialing 911. They're counting that as the response time. So it's forcing us to be a little more hands-on with VEC and giving them examples and the areas that they need to improve and how we can help them do that. So anyway, that's one of the ways that we're working on, and we've identified several that we've put in place already. One being that instead of VEC using our location of our fire stations as the point of dispatch, we've put a GPS unit in every vehicle, and so real-time status, the computer sees where we are and dispatches the closest available unit. So that's one way that we're using to get a faster response time. Like I said, nobody is meeting these standard yet, but that's the goal. That's what we're working towards.
So can I add one note?
Sure.
So after a previous one of these presentations, on the way home, we saw a fire. So we pulled over, called 911. And then I think Chief alluded to this when he gave the presentation, that it seems like an hour before they come when it's only really 2 minutes, 30 seconds or something.
Right.
So perception when you're in that emergency for the person calling is totally different than the actual.
Yeah,
So
for sure. I've done the same thing. And like, where are they?
yeah.
Yeah, and we get that sometimes. It took you 30 minutes to get here, right? No. So anyway, that is one of the things that we're doing to improve and get better. This slide shows a 4-minute response time from our stations. So the highlighted area, those are the areas that from the fire station we can drive to and respond to in 4 minutes. As you can see, there's some holes there that we're trying to work out. But this next slide, oh, what happened? This next slide shows how we're working with our partners, our neighbors, South Salt Lake, UFA, West Jordan, and they're helping us fill some of those edge areas. Like you take the DMV, that's a long run for our fire stations to get down there. But Station 118, which is right here, and that DMV is like right here, they're just like 5 blocks away, 4 blocks away. So they help us cover that area. And then we also go, but they're there so that our citizens getting the coverage that they would expect. You can still see there's some small little islands out there that we can't quite get to in 4 minutes. But they're small. And we're just still identifying other ways that we can meet the standards that's being set by the NFPA. In a nutshell, that's all I have, but I'm interested if you guys have any questions or anything that we can answer that you saw in the report or any comments that you'd like to make. Sure be happy to take those questions.
Hey, any questions?
I just like to add one thing that we're working on. The ISO, the Insurance Service Office, which sets fire insurance rates for businesses. Right now, West Valley City is a Class 2 city. which there's not many of them. We've been working over the last year and a half, and I'm pleased to say that I think we're going to go for a re-rating in 2 months where we'll be a class 1 city, which is the highest you can get. That means a reduction, especially for commercial occupancies in fire insurance rates. So between this and ISO, we're striving to be the best. So with that, if there's anything, please let us know.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a big change. So is that just the level of service, not the population, right?
They take in everything, ISO takes in everything from water supply to, with the water companies, to how we operate, where our stations are, what our times are, what our training level is, what dispatch is. It takes in probably 30 different points, puts them all together to give us our rating.
Awesome. Okay, no questions from the council? Okay, thank you. Good job.
Mayor, if it would be okay for me to just add something to that.
Sure.
As we were preparing for this, I just remember when we were striving to get our ambulance service, and I happened to be the lawyer at the time helping them do that. And so I was very familiar then with our response times and very familiar with them now. And as we endeavor, and I love and appreciate that they're setting the bar so high for our residents, but I also wanted to add that we as a department have come so far since those days, and that our response times truly are exceptional. And even though it feels like a long time when you're on the other end, boy, aren't we glad when they show up. And truly wanted to just say thank you to Chief Evans and his DCs. They're awesome, and they really run a very tight ship and are known across the state for their method of service and provision of service. And as you, I'm sure, receive, as we do in administration all the time, people are very grateful for their service and the way that they handle themselves. So appreciate them very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to our animal shelter adoption hours. So I forwarded everybody the response of the hours and their abilities. Did anybody have any questions? Taken care of. This all came from the email I forwarded you the end of last week of a gentleman that was unable to register because of the limited times for adoption, and whether or not we need to see if we can move those hours a little bit to make it easier for working families to be able to adopt, or if we're happy with how it's being run. So did anybody else read the email and have any opinions?
I read the information that was sent out this afternoon, that in the Word doc. I mean, and just looking at that, sounds like, or appears that they're at capacity as far as being able to expand hours. So it's just a matter of either increasing that or changing the hours to something else.
Maybe have a couple nights a week that would be until 6 o'clock or 5:30 so that people could go after work. And maybe, I know they do off-site Saturday adoptions, but I don't know. There's some of these that were productive, and then there were some that there was only like one adoption at an off-site. And if that time would be better served at our shelter on a Saturday instead of out and about.
Or an evening on a weeknight, instead of ending at 4:30, go to 5:30 or 6.
Yeah, just to make it easier. So what would it entail to be able to change the hours?
So yeah, I became a quick expert on this over the weekend, and I fully understand, I think, the operations enough to say two things. The first is we really have not had any other complaints. We don't have complaints, and as you can see, we're adopting at a pretty steady clip. Right. However, in order to shift a little bit, what we're looking at is an adoption. They like to spend or have the time to spend between an hour and an hour and a half with the person. And as you can imagine, if we have a shelter tech who's doing the adoption, in order to stay open later, you also will need other people staffing, because if you're open, then you need someone to answer the phone and the door and do the adoption. And so it's more than just shifting and having one person stay later. However, I think that we routinely have and have the option, and you saw they even referenced for us, the ability to shift a little bit one way or the other. So if the council would like us to give it a whirl on 1 or 2 nights of the week, I think that's doable. I think the repercussion of that would be the limitation of some of these other things. And there are 2 reasons for that. The first is these are our highest turnover positions in the city. And the reason is twofold. The first is it's a pretty difficult job. And it's a kind of a heart, it hurts people's hearts kind of a job.
When you
Okay.
like pets.
Yes,
Yes.
that's who we hire, and it's really hard on folks. So we have a lot of turnover in this particular position, these particular positions. And so I would say tentatively, yes, we can absolutely go to maybe an hour or 2 later on 1 or 2 nights a week.
Yeah. I don't
What
think that's
that will
gonna work.
do is we will have to kind of find a way to trim around the edges, because we don't really have overtime to pay folks. And as you can see, because we clean the shelters every day, and because we have those Fridays and Saturdays, we do have some people there. As long as the council's okay with some adjustment around the edges that we can kind of make so that we can make those evening hours available, I can either have them propose a little bit of a structure back to you, or you can just say, please make those adjustments and I'll make that happen. Whatever
Because
you prefer.
We're open till 6, so I'm assuming they're staffed until 6.
They are, but what happens is they don't want to start an adoption at 6.
Right,
They
No,
want to
it's
start
till
one a little
7:30.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
right. But if they,
so yes, we have someone there to
Yeah.
answer the phones until 6. Is that what
well,
you're, yeah?
oh, don't say those words. to
Or,
me.
we have someone to.
I
be at the
called
front desk.
today and got, I can transfer you to an answering machine 5 times. No one answers the phone there.
Check that too.
It was a whole day of it.
Sometimes that does
So.
happen. It's a very busy, as you might imagine, a very
Yeah,
busy
But
spot.
don't we have somebody else, a different department that could help them with their phones?
Yep,
There's
I can-
other
I can have that
assistants
conversation,
Okay.
yes.
in that same building.
Yep.
Because that was frustrating.
This has been the only time somebody's complained.
I asked
Uh,
about that. I asked around, and at least as far as we're aware from the admin and in the particular department, we have not heard complaints about the,
So I've
Nice.
received them on a personal level a couple times, but not like 100 times, maybe less than 5, that I just can't adopt. And the numbers that what we have in there would make me think we want to get as many out of there as possible on a daily basis.
absolutely. And of course, our officers and our shelter techs, that's their greatest desire.
Yeah, because then they don't
They
have to
could
feed them.
adopt all day long and have them in good homes. That's what they would want.
Yeah,
Says that our highest adoption days are Tuesdays and Fridays. Just throwing this out there, but I would think Saturday morning, once a month would be a big day.
Sure. So would you suggest staying in the shelter on a Saturday morning instead of going to an event?
I think so.
I think so too.
Okay.
Because I don't know where the events are, but
Events, we have offsite adoptions, 67 adoptions. I think you get a lot more of that in-house. if we're open. But I don't know,
I think
I'm
that's a great.
I'm not an animal person, so I just,
well, and I'm not an analyst. This is a Lars thing, but over 5.5 months, 854 out of the shelter. And I don't know if that is including these 67 or not
It's not, the 67 are in addition.
in addition. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Like your cost benefit analysis there. Uh-huh.
And
Yep,
just where the,
sure.
if maybe we'd have better success if we were there on Saturday instead of
Yeah.
out and about it.
Let's give that a
Events.
try. Could we do that instead of the later in the evenings on the weekdays?
Yeah.
We just do a Saturday or 2 a month where we're in shelter
Mhm.
and we have special events out of our shelter, meaning
Yes.
Saturday.
promotions.
Kind of like a
Promotional
big,
thing.
uh-huh. Okay, let's give it a
Yeah, well, I
try.
think that would be a good place to start.
And then how about if we do that for a couple months and we'll report back on how we're doing?
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Okay.
Just a quick question, I saw on here appointments, are those being utilized?
Yeah, in fact, that's been a really popular thing. So we started the appointments during COVID. And people really like that because they know when they get there, they're not gonna be fourth in the adoption line and they're gonna be right there. So most people prefer the appointment. At least our feedback from our customers has been, we prefer the appointment style. It's not like we're getting a lot of repeat customers for the most part. Sometimes we do, but the people that come in say, oh, I'm glad. It's kind of like the DMV when they started the
Yes.
appointments. They're glad for those.
Nicole, I have a question for you. Just wonder, most appointment you have is in afternoon, like up to like 4 PM or?
We have them happen all through the day. Yeah, but the reason we can't start until that certain hour is because they come back and come to the place where we have to be safe. And so it takes time to clean it,
Right.
get it dry, and then we start. So the most popular times
Uh-huh.
are those Tuesdays and Fridays, but all through the day, we stay pretty steady. There's not like a 1 o'clock is the most popular or 3 o'clock. It's pretty steady.
So you start from 1 PM to 4:30 PM?
Usually, yeah, they usually, yes.
Like if you do like 2 PM to 5:30 PM?
Well, let's start with the Saturdays.
Uh-huh.
And then if we still need to switch, I think that'd be, that's
Yeah.
what I thought would be a
Yeah.
good place to start. But I agree with, you gotta be able to finish the adoption in a timely manner.
Or it just gets, what happens is it's cascading.
Yeah.
We need a lot of extra folks.
To
after
stay like
time,
until 7.
or
Yeah.
start later.
So I can understand that. Would you be comfortable with just starting with Saturdays and then seeing if we need it during the week?
Sure, I'm okay with it.
Okay, let's see if that helps
We'll do,
clear it out a little sooner.
we'll do 2 Saturday, or we'll do 2 months, and then we'll report back on our, both our adoption levels on those Saturdays and how it's working. Okay,
And it might take a little bit more time just to get the advertising out there that we're doing it in-house.
good.
So it might take more than 2 months, but we'll see.
Okay,
We can do a review in 2 and then another one in 4.
sounds good.
And do our adoptions pick up in the summer months?
That's a question I don't know the answer to. Yes,
Okay.
they do. And
That
we,
might be,
as you remember, we're a no-kill shelter, so we're gonna be full all the time for the most part. But we do a steady clip. I mean, that's a pretty
What
good
in and
number.
outs. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
all right. Now we'll go to our code enforcement. Sorry, I had it up ready to go and then I opened a different email. Anybody want to? Read this one? Or should we just go through them one line item at a time? Jake, welcome.
Hi,
I didn't see you walk in, sorry.
no problem. And great due diligence on that last topic. We talk in my work, talk about opening and closing hours for the clinics and what days of the week, and that's exactly how we would have broken it down by utilization. So nice work, team.
Okay, thank you. You need a little positive reinforcement all the time. So how would you like to, do you have it printed out?
Well,
You
I
wanna-
printed out what Wayne sent us.
Yeah, I didn't print it out, but I have it up here. So should we go just one item at a time, or how would you guys like to take it? We have plenty of time.
As far as this proposed suggestions from Wayne, I just have a couple questions. Looks like our solution to any code enforcement is a courtesy notice and then the NOV process. What's the NOV process? Is that?
so I can answer that.
Notice, yeah.
if you-
Notice
ahead.
violation?
Yeah, so, okay, so just so everybody is clear, this document was us trying to take what the council said on the 31st and repeat it back to you. So this is us trying to make sure we heard you, okay? So second answer is, the NOV process is the notice of violation process. So that then we would issue a notice of violation. They would have a certain amount of time still to cure, and we'd go down that normal process.
All right, and then there are a couple places in here that second last page says historically, this is what
Yes.
we've done, and typically this is what we would do. think in a procedure, it should be black and white.
Oh, yeah, no,
Not,
we'll,
not
Yeah.
historically or maybe or typically, just, this is how we.
once you guys bless this, once the council says yes, we will make this policy, like, we'll make it appropriate policy wordage, verbiage. And
I'm trying to find, which document are we looking at now?
Okay, so it's the proposed procedures of enforcement for select codes.
and it
And I
was
can find
sent,
this.
it was
She
sent in
re,
an
she
email.
sent it to us in Nicole,
could you
if you
send
search
it again?
Nicole, and she sent it last Tuesday to us.
Okay, last Tuesday.
Yeah, so I just searched it Nicole, and then it does say. I hit done. The header is follow-up on code enforcement discussion from Nicole.
I can send it again if you'd like,
Got it,
so it's at the
Okay.
top. You need it, Tom?
Yes,
Okay.
just resend it again, please.
So Mayor, just a comment. I mean, there were things in here and I went back to the meeting and read the minutes, but it just seemed like there were a lot of drastic changes that I don't remember
Bringing up,
bringing up.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it. There was one about the yard sales and maybe that was brought up and I missed it.
well, should we just start with the first one,
Yeah.
outside storage and solid waste?
Yeah. I got it.
I'm still trying to find this document.
Okay.
I have the email, but
was when. Yeah.
Oh, then in the email,
follow up
Darn.
on code enforcement.
so then it,
I can re-forward it to everybody, just,
I have the email.
yeah,
but
then it's
the
just
Word
that
document
first
coming-
attachment right above courtesy notice. There's the first attachment that says proposed procedures.
Okay.
And I opened that one. That's what I was just gonna start
Okay,
with
thank you. I
first.
got it.
Okay. Phew.
just sent it again if anyone
In case
needs
somebody can
it.
find it.
It'll be there at the top.
All right. So items constructed for inside use stay inside. So in the front yard, yes, in the backyard. I thought we understood, or I thought the suggestion was that we do not enforce outside or inside furniture in the backyard. Unless there's a reason it causes,
That's what it says. Regardless of fencing, no enforcement unless current health hazards.
right, unless they have mice or rats or whatever.
Yeah.
Am I understanding that right? So we're
Yeah.
not enforcing inside and outside furniture in the backyard?
So that's it, that's an example of it, but remember outside storage and solid waste, it's everything that could be in a backyard.
Right,
Unless it's a health or safety hazard. Yes, you're understanding that correctly, as long as you're understanding it's more than just furniture. It could be all kinds of things. It could be any kind of outside storage or solid waste. So let's say it's an old refrigerator. Or
Okay.
Bunch of tires.
Yeah. Thank you. I can think of another example.
I just know there's a house in my neighborhood that has,
a gazillion tires?
no, but they have like 5 boats and 3 trailers all in their backyard. I don't know how they even move back there, but I'm sure there's tires and other stuff that's back there. I've always, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, the previous requirements said that all outside storage areas shall be surfaced appropriately. And so is this trying to say if it's for inside, it needs to be inside and or am I reading that differently?
So in the past, there have been abatements where somebody's had what someone considers inside furniture on their back porch, and they've seized all the furniture. So broken refrigerators, stoves, things like that, that's a totally different thing. If you have an outdoor kitchen, can you have a functioning stove in your outdoor kitchen, your patio
It's in the
kitchen?
backyard, according to this, yeah.
Okay, so only if it is broken and useless.
Only if it's a safety or health issue.
Right.
Right. Is the only reason they go in the backyard?
We're not gonna go and check to see if it works or not, if it's broken or not. But if it's a health or safety issue, then we would, in the backyard. Front yard is a totally different ballgame.
Right.
But backyard, we would have to see obvious health or safety issues. That's how I
interpreted it,
That's how I take it.
okay?
And I think
Or,
that
or
would be,
nuisance, it's like odors. Is that a health or safety issue? If my neighbor's backyard makes it so I can't go to my backyard because it smells so bad.
Yes, which,
That's troubling.
Just where do you draw that line of nuisance? Okay, all right.
sound, you gotta.
Some people are gonna be
hear.
like, well, it's a nuisance, so I have to look at that.
Draw the line right here. Right.
Just say deteriorating organic waste with odor.
Which means if you put your dog waste in a garbage can without a lid and you set it next to the fence where your neighbor has their barbecues, they're probably gonna call. Correct? And so they should.
and that would be in the backyard typically how we would enforce at all is we would enforce based on a complaint.
And you go in the complainant's backyard to see what they're seeing or smelling.
Right? And then we would make a determination if it is a safety or health hazard, and then we would enforce. Otherwise, we are going to tell people, we're gonna make this a policy that we don't enforce in the backyard
Unless it's safety and.
unless it's
Health and
health
safety.
and yes.
I'm okay with nuisance. As long as there's common sense with that.
Yeah, well, it's gonna have to be. The common sense will have to be written in, pretty sure, because everybody will have a different interpretation of. But I liked the deteriorating organic waste, pretty much told me what they were looking at. Unless I'm misunderstanding what that means.
I think it's.
Okay.
A pretty stinky compost pile too.
That's true.
That's
And
that's
those are,
organic waste.
yeah, and those are people's passion. Good luck getting rid of those.
That's deteriorating.
That is, yeah, hadn't thought about that one. I've never had one or lived next to one, so do they smell really bad?
I don't know, I haven't had one or lived next to one either. I've just heard.
You've heard that they're really bad?
If they're taking care of it right, they shouldn't
compost?
smell bad.
Okay,
So
okay, that's one that I hadn't thought of, the other thing I had. Okay, and then the 2 weeks, so are they gonna get this notice Saturday morning and that's gonna be considered a weekend? Or how
We'll
are
make
we
sure
gonna
that
know?
it's 2 full weekends. So if they happen to have that, or if we're sending those out on, let's say Friday, we'll assume
Thursday or Friday?
that they're getting those on Saturday and we'll give them in addition 2 full weekends.
Okay, not counting that weekend.
That's right.
Okay, perfect.
We understood that to be the council's intent, that someone in an effort to help them clean up, they need 2 full weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right, inoperable vehicles.
So Mayor, I'm so
Oh, sorry.
sorry. And I'm so sorry. I want to make sure before I leave
No,
this
you're
room, I
good.
know what you guys want.
Yeah,
So
you're good.
on this first one, as a council, we're okay with it as you are directing, it's okay as written. I mean, from a, this is your intent. This is your direction. We'll still make it into the policy.
Right,
but-
into the legal words.
Yes.
Yeah.
But as long as everyone's okay with the policy as written, the decisions, then,
Just add nuisance to that, right?
well,
I think that,
I think the deteriorating,
that they've said unless imminent or current health hazards such as deteriorating organic waste with odor. I think that covers what I'm worried about.
great.
So you okay with that?
I think so.
Okay, I'm putting my initials next to number 1. We're good. Okay.
all right, inoperable vehicles. So in the front yard, of course, we want to enforce that. Side yards, behind the setback, right? So it's behind the house, not in front of the house,
wait,
but in a setback.
sorry, can we go back to?
Yep.
So the last, the city will not issue administrative warnings or citations. Is that just in regards to the first time that we hit them up? What if they just refuse to listen, don't do anything to abate the situation? We can't escalate that beyond that?
Great question.
Okay.
And the intent here is those administrative warnings or citations, remember, are like a traffic ticket. So they're a pull your car away from the sidewalk ticket, right? What we would do in this case with a non-responsive person is we would get them to the ALJ. And then later in the discussion, you are going to have to tell us if you would like us to get to the abatement level or not.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't want abatement, I would advise that we potentially maintain the administrative possibility. But those are also really for that noise, like you need to stop it now kind of tickets, not you take your time. You know what I'm saying?
I'm cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's about the severity of the
Yeah, yeah.
charge, right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote, rather than, yeah, I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
okay.
And is that
Good
on that
question.
first one?
On the first one, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
because it's pretty much on all of them, so
Okay.
it's
I'm
the
gonna
same
follow-
verbiage.
Sorry, man, go ahead.
Nope, you're fine.
I'm just follow up with that, Jay just says, is that so the first time, are we gonna give them a warning? Is that right? Or we?
Courtesy notice.
Courtesy
Okay,
notice.
courtesy notice.
2 weekends.
yes, sir.
And then it's a notice of violation after that.
But they still get, I think they still get 10 days after the NOV.
Do they
get another
Corrected
10
before they
days?
get fined.
Mhm. Yep,
Okay.
there's
So they
still
really get
half built in that
3
way.
weeks.
And
Almost
there's still,
4
way-
weeks.
that's all I was worried about, is there's still a way to escalate it, which is cool, but this is not like criminalizing to where we're taking people to, yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'm cool with that.
Okay, my initials are still on
Still
that
there.
one. Okay.
Okay, inoperable vehicles.
What,
So-
let's, if we can define readily observable inoperable vehicle. What does that mean?
Well, they do say the such as, right? So
But
if it has a flat tire
Missing body parts,
or windows,
windows, on jack stands, et cetera. What is et cetera?
Yeah, we probably need to get rid of the et cetera and have,
Yeah,
let me give you an example.
oh, okay.
My kids got cited twice for an inoperable vehicle on their driveway because they were working on the race car. It has no windows. There's no
Oh,
windshield.
yeah.
It is not inoperable. It run races every weekend. But
That's true.
during the week, they were working on it in their driveway because the garage is a little crowded when you get 3 cars in there to work on them. And
True.
they got cited, and when they explained everything and got in the car and flipped the switch and it went, whoa.
Yeah, then they knew.
And the poor officer jumped back about 4 feet because he wasn't used to the no muffler. Yeah, it runs. It is operable. So
And that's more of like a recreational vehicle that may or may not be licensed. That
it's
could
not
be,
licensed other than at the track, but it's got a track license in the windshield. You know?
Yeah.
It's totally operable. But would look inoperable. And even with the big number on the side and on the top and everything, they didn't realize it was a race car.
They haven't been to enough races.
They haven't.
Some of them didn't grow up at the track. Some did,
Some of them didn't have my dad.
Yeah.
Or my father-in-law.
or my friends. Yeah, so I don't know how you get around that. I mean, that's still just the common sense. And I don't know how to phrase that in there.
Yeah, I don't either.
And if they. So what would they have to do? They would get the citation,
They would get the citation. They got the courtesy notice
right? And then did they call the officer? Okay,
and said, come out and look at it.
okay,
We'll explain it to you. And they did come out, and as long as that officer was on that beat, it was okay. When they changed officers, they had to
Educate them?
educate the new one.
so is there, okay, so building inspections that are tagged to an address. Do they not have a history? They can look back and
Sure.
say, this car. We type in something on this address and it comes up, this car is really legit.
yeah, we do have that. We do have City Works. We may not have when that occurred. It may not have been. Our City Works function may not, I mean, I don't know when it was, sir. But
It's been a while
yeah,
because
but we do have that.
we did have a good,
So there's, okay,
we did have a good operating conversations with most of the officers.
okay.
And if it's the council's desire to say that race cars are recreational vehicles, we can just say that. You do also have the demolition derby cars. And so along the same vein, we see those in our city.
They have even less windows.
They have even less windows. So
So they have less parts.
be missing
yeah,
parts.
it's
Yeah.
really just up to you as a council, what your desire is, where you think the line is on that.
Well, by
I don't
everything,
think, I don't think we're gonna be able to define and
Every case.
notice every exception.
Yeah.
And that's why the process, I think, worked great with your son,
Mhm.
that they got the
My
note,
daughter.
they got the courtesy notice. And talked to the officer, and the officer said, oh, okay,
I make that adamant. It was my daughter and granddaughter.
yes, sir.
not all cars are driven by boys. They have the girl rounds. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just, I guess, the officer being able, returning their calls in a timely manner and not putting them off because they're on vacation or whatever. Be able to take care of it. And then if we can make sure they put a note on the records so that it doesn't get repeated. Demolition derby cars, you only work on them until July, and then everybody smashes them by the middle of August, and they should be at the dump.
We had a demolition derby at the Maverick Center inside
We did.
that wasn't in the summer, I don't think.
All those one-offs.
It could.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what you want to do about demolition derby cars. I mean, if one was in my neighbor's yard for the 3 months to get it ready and then left after the derby, I would have no problem with that, but I like derbies, so I don't know about the rest of you. I go to a derby every year.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, so
Maybe next time. I've never been.
cameras.
Oh, you have it, they are fun.
You gotta drive in one.
Yeah, driving in them is even funner, but
Let's do that next year instead of a parade. Let's just get a car.
City council demolition.
We lost the spot we could hold it at. It's now buildings.
The Maverick Center, let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as long as these kinds of incidents are the exception and not a
Yeah.
rule, I don't have any. issue
But we
with the language.
do have several drivers
drivers that live in the city.
who live in the city.
Okay,
And I know many of them do have their own shop where they can work on them or something. but
inside,
Many of them work, their garage is their shop.
right. And their driveway is their extended
garage.
workspace for a little bit, then they put it back in. Okay,
Well, and this, we're not enforcing what's in the backyard.
right.
And if they are given a courtesy notice, they've got 10 days to get it cleared up, or two
Weekends.
weekends. To have them come out and get it cleared up or get it moved, so. I'm okay with that.
The last sentence on the first section, the license and registration status is relevant.
Still relevant.
Exactly. We're okay with that, having unlicensed.
Just
So-
because your license is expired, your car could still be running, or you could be working on getting it relicensed.
Yeah. And it's mainly if it's in the front setback.
Yeah.
So side yards, no, and the rear yard, no. So if you're working on it, just don't park
Backyard.
Does the side yard begin at the building? Is that?
front of the
Front
house.
house.
Yes, that's correct, right?
Front of the house.
Yep, thank you, Steve. Yes.
Okay, we all good with how it is then?
Well, just thinking
Okay,
with that, if there, let's say you have a car in the side setback right behind the front of the house, but it's missing the whole front end that he's working on, so it's visible from the street. It'd be nice to have something that say that it's not visible from the street. And that's the whole idea, is we don't have junk cars that we see as we drive down the road.
so in here, it does say they can put a car cover on it,
Well, that's
which
good.
most people do if they're working on it. Especially if it's a antique car, you don't want it to get wet. So, but not a generic tarp, so you can't just go to Harbor Freight and buy a blue tarp or a gray tarp. You have to actually
Okay.
go get a car cover, and they're like $25. Well, 10 years ago, they were $25. They're probably more now, but it's under $100 to cover up your car and have it not be unsightly. So the car covering is in there. Does that work enough?
Well, but the side setback, we couldn't enforce that because they're still in the side setback behind the front of the house. So it wouldn't matter if we tell them they have to get a car cover, we don't have any way to really say that.
So do you want to add what's in the first one about, we don't enforce it behind a solid fence, but we do enforce it
I like
in
that.
front of a non-private
Yeah, I like that.
fence? You want to add that to that?
Enforce if there's no solid fence
Or if it's visible from the road.
visible from the road.
That's all. Everybody good with that? Okay, you're just gonna have to say if you're not good with something, okay? Because I can't see enough heads nod.
Yeah.
All right. And then purple cars.
Sorry,
So
is
what,
there any health and safety consideration for stuff in the back? I mean, I know it's not enforced, we don't look back there, but if you got
So if you have six,
raccoons living in that thing and, I don't know.
I would say yes on all of these, the health and safety in the backyard would always be enforced.
yes,
Okay, perfect.
yes.
Yeah, you could have 6 cars and have them just on concrete, it's beautiful. But then if you have 3-foot weeds and there's rats and then, yeah, they're gonna come in and,
Okay, so that covers all these. Yeah,
do
then
you
we're good.
think? Is
Yes,
that how we're
ma'am.
supposed to be interpreting it?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question before we
Yep.
move on? The
Yep.
second to last sentence, the city will seek a court order through the NOV process to enter and remove offending vehicles. That means on inoperable vehicles that are in violation. If the owner doesn't handle it, we will seek an abatement.
so for only health and safety reasons, right?
In this case, no, this
Just
would be
for
for any,
violation.
this would be for the person who does not.
Inoperable vehicle in the.
Yeah.
In the front
driveway,
yard.
Yes,
Visible from the road
yes,
that they're not taken care of in
That's
3
right.
weeks.
Okay,
that's correct.
but if it's in the backyard,
If
And
it's in
all
the
these
backyard,
things, it
backyard
doesn't
and
get
it's
it.
not a health and safety problem and no one complains. None of
then
our
it doesn't
business.
have, yeah, okay.
Does that sound, does everybody? I can put my initials by that one. Okay,
Is that all good? There's no no's, so. I
just
think
wanted
you're
to double check. Okay, great.
good. Okay. Landscaping.
Wait, can we talk about how that works in terms of the costs for towing something? Is this something that we ever try to recoup from them, or is it just?
We do. We do. When we have those abatement orders and we carry those out, we do charge those against the landowner.
Great.
I know, Mayor, you mentioned that you were okay with bare dirt, but I think, just my opinion, I would not. And of just dirt,
Okay,
something gravel or.
Clover.
Yeah.
Now, with the ordinance as it is right now, if you plant your front yard in clover, you're good. If it's just clover and weeds, clover and lawn currently, one has to win. Either the lawn wins or the clover wins, but not both.
About the alfalfa.
I didn't ask him about that. I have a child who wanted to tear out my front lawn and put clover in. He was just gonna put it on the lawn and hope it choked out the lawn. So I had to explain to him, you have to take out the lawn before you put down the clover. If I interpreted what Mr. Pastrick told me when I called to ask if that was legal or not. So that's why I know that one
That's the main weed that we get. 'Cause
is alfalfa.
we're still residual alfalfa fields.
It never goes away. Well, diesel in a match. That's a whole nother story. Okay, so for landscaping, which includes grass, flowers, bushes, trees, bark, gravel, artificial turf, weeds, and bare dirt. So we'll take out bare dirt.
The only reason I was okay with bare dirt before was because neighbors have dry spots. And they end up having patches of dry dirt in their lawn. And they got violations for it. And so you know, somebody's grass may look like grass, but to them, but to us, it may look like it's got some dirt in there. So I don't know how we.
But if you keep it clean, then we do.
But if they're trying to rectify the problem, if they've got a,
Well, if it's July and it's dried out, you got dry patches and you're not, can't water enough to keep it growing.
Yeah, in that case, that's understandable, but the 60%.
Having 60% of bare dirt. Yeah, little 2-foot patches every once in a while.
How do we write that in
So that-
there?
You just write it like that. Any patch over 2 feet will be a problem. Because most of that is either you've got a hard spot. So we have one person who, they're great builders and their house is 40+ years old. Buried concrete before they did the landscaping. So they have concrete coming up still after 40 years. And so they kind of have issues every once in a while. So and then there's other ones that have too much of a slope or the water or the ground's too hard for it to grow. And so they have to do a lot over a year to get it to come back in that area. So I don't know how you determine that one.
You wanna wordsmith that?
If I understand it, so the way I understand the council's intent as it's spoken is slightly different than what is written here, only as it relates to bare dirt.
Correct.
The council's okay with bare dirt in 2 foot or less squares in the normal, natural kind of you're having problems with your grass sort of a way.
Yes, because if you have the wrong aerator, he gives you a disease too.
Okay. 2 foot or less,
2 square foot or less.
2
probably.
square foot.
Yeah, probably, because it could be long and skinny.
I think we could probably wordsmith that. So yes,
Is that,
if that's the intent of the council, we'll wordsmith it. We'll figure it out.
and then I'm thinking about somebody else that I visited last summer who had a big flower bed, raised flower bed. Well, a lot of that is just gonna be dirt, especially in the winter and spring and
Well, yeah, until it's planted.
so.
So that would be fine.
Just
It is just discretion.
Yeah.
I have Steve here prepared with a landscape presentation. He can show some pictures if you'd like.
Yes, I'd
Or-
like to see some pictures.
Okay, would that be the will of the council?
Maybe you'll sit out, you can hear us from out there.
I don't know if our good mayor heard that here. I'm sorry.
What's that?
I have Steve Patrick here and he could he has a presentation ready just to show some pictures.
There we go.
We just were ready if you
Right.
wanted to go.
Mr. Pastor. Yeah.
We needed some intent,
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Steve, thank you. Go for it. And he's got some good representative pictures will help us make sure we're all on the same page here.
We haven't had enough Steve Pastor.
We can't go and use
Couple of
it.
months.
Good now.
This is
Gotta
good.
make up for it.
Only for Steve.
So we've got in here, if there are specific questions, what's in the code currently? And this particular picture was an example of someone that literally paved their entire front yard.
Okay, so that's.
The
a no.
backyard?
That's the front yard.
Oh, this is the front yard.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole thing was asphalt.
So this is why there is we will come in and remove your asphalt.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay,
Correct.
great.
an expensive mistake.
So we all agree that's a no.
So here's one where it's almost all gravel with a few shrubs.
Mhm.
And that looks like they maybe have a few potted plants too.
And this one, Steve, doesn't meet the
This
percentages.
does not
right?
meet, right, because the code requires that at least 30% of your landscaping would be some form of live plant material, so this would be well below the 30%.
Okay.
But what I'm understanding is the 30% is no longer, we would no longer enforce the 30%.
No, per this, we would enforce the 30%.
So
haven't gotten to the percentage part yet.
if they put in some orange shrubs and potted plants, it would meet the 30% but that bare dirt with what we're talking about.
Well, that's gravel.
It's all gravel.
That's all gravel.
It's all
That's gravel.
Correct.
Okay.
So, right, to comply with the code, they would just need to add more plant material to comply.
And then when we decide the percentage, the plant material needs to be at full growth, not at planting. Because you're gonna plant a 4-inch pot and it's gonna grow to 6 feet if it's an ice plant across. So if you put 5 of those in, I mean, your whole lawn will be ice plant, which is not a bad thing. But I think if we tell them when they plant it, it has to be 30%, I think we're going to cause the use of more water than we need to in those situations. And most people who do this are doing it for. Some are doing it because of conservation. Some have other motives, but the classes they teach out at Jordan Valley teach you how to plant it so that when it's finished, it'll be the 30%, not when it's planted.
So the current code is not that way.
I know.
If the council's desire is that, we need to make a quick code change, and we could interpret in the meantime.
I'm okay with this one. You say something, I mean, for the water.
My only thought would be, can artificial turf count towards the 30%?
It can count towards, right now, the code allows it to count as half of the 30%.
So where does that say that in here? This says,
Are you looking at this one? It doesn't say it in here.
Right.
That goes back to.
Exactly. That's what's in the code currently. So here's,
okay, so that, say that
It
again,
kind of says, that. I mean, it talks about artificial turf, but it doesn't say that.
that it can only be a
50%,
percent,
that 30%.
yeah. Because I would like if the whole front lawn can be artificial turf, awesome, do it.
Okay, let's talk about,
Let's
Steve,
get on
let's
the
start from the
landscaping.
beginning and run us through the current, these are current code sections as written, including the 2 changes we made, one last April and one in October.
correct.
Okay,
So, in front yards, the code right now requires 1 tree and then a combination of lawn, shrub, or ground cover. So because it's or, lawn does not, you don't have to have lawn, it's an option.
Okay,
Then within the landscaping, at least 30% of the entire front yard would be some type of live plant material, and that doesn't include the tree canopy. So if you have a big tree, like that canopy is not included in the 30%. And then we mentioned the types of ground cover, so it's vines, shrubs, flowers, that sort of thing. And then also you can have like rock or bark mulch be the non-living plant or not non-living landscaping or artificial turf. And then that last line there says that when it comes to the live plant material, artificial turf can count towards half of that. So you can have most of the front yard in artificial turf, right? But at least in this case, it would be 15% of your landscaping would need to be live plant material. If that, hopefully that makes sense. Because the artificial turf can count towards all of the non-living landscaping and half of the living landscaping.
So basically, this rule does not apply with the photo you can show it to us.
no,
Right. So the one that's because they don't have the 30% live plant
but
material.
Steve, if I wanted to do my front yard, if I said to myself, much like grass, I just want a grass front yard, but I want it to be artificial turf. Can I do the whole front yard in artificial turf?
Currently, no.
yeah, see, and I'd rather that be an option.
The same as a the same as a grass front yard.
Yeah,
I think that the thought at the time was that you would have, for example, maybe a planter bed or shrubs up against the house. You have some other plant material and not just all artificial turf, but certainly we could make that change.
Whatever the council says. Tell us.
I think the green would look good. I'd rather have artificial turf than something that doesn't look like it was taken care of.
And I think 9 times out of 10 or even more, you're gonna have plant beds if somebody does their whole front yard in astroturf. It's gonna be pretty rare that they're gonna just go from foundation to sidewalk, driveway to fence, and do all turf. So I think we can make it equal, and I don't think we're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, that artificial turf can be the 100% of the landscape.
If
that's
It's gonna
what
be
they
pretty
want.
rare that
Yeah.
someone's gonna do that, but yeah.
Well, and it's not cheap.
No.
It's like $10 a square foot.
It's expensive.
So if you're gonna do it, you're gonna take care of it.
So code change number 1 is to make the artificial turf basically the same as grass. So if I wanted to do my whole front yard, just grass, I could do that right now,
Right.
live grass,
Right.
right? We'll make the turf the same, artificial turf the same.
So is anybody
Council's good?
objective to that?
Okay,
Okay,
As long as there's some artificial turf that's put in that looks off, I mean, that's not well maintained and.
Yeah, we have a section with
Yeah, we have
standards.
Yeah, we
good
have standards for
Yep.
We do. We have
And that's why I said it's $10 a square foot, not the,
$2.
the 99-cent stuff you get at Lowe's. It's gotta be the good
it's
stuff.
not the green carpet.
No.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
you can do that.
Any other concerns with this as it's written now? Any other changes you want in this part?
So 30% of the entire front yards shall be live plant material. So are we good with 30 or are we good with 10 or are we good with 20?
30 as long as it, 100% of it can be the, like we just mentioned. Artificial turf.
As live plant material.
Right, but if you don't put artificial turf everywhere, maybe you put gravel, then you want 30% of the front yard to be in living plant.
Wait a minute.
Earlier. We'll take a look again.
Could you find one that complies, Steve?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got some
Okay.
examples that comply
that-
as well.
That one would need more to get to
Plant
30.
material.
Correct.
Would you say that's 10% there?
Probably even less than that.
So do they have like that structure in the middle there? Does it have plants in it and does that count? Or is it only what's in the ground at ground level? I can't tell what that one thing is.
Wheelbarrow?
Behind the wheelbarrow. I couldn't even tell that was a wheelbarrow, so thank you.
The code doesn't technically specify between like a potted plant versus like one in
Okay,
the
so you could
ground.
put a potted plant out there.
I think if an officer's out there, if they have potted or like potted plants, they're gonna count those.
Okay. So do you have one that complies with 30%?
We do. So so here's just
Okay,
one is bare dirt, right? Where they've got plants, but it's just mostly dirt.
and those are cactus. They're not gonna fill in like,
Actually, I
one
don't know
might
if
be a
I have
nice
a problem
plant.
with this bare dirt.
you what?
I don't think I have a problem with the bare dirt, at least where the cacti are.
It's well kept, no weeds,
Mm-hmm,
like half of Arizona looks like that.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I think the concern with bare dirt would just be the
Maintenance.
weed
It's maintenance.
maintenance.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this, Jim. They try to do their best.
Wait, and this was an example of a compliant property.
No, this one, sorry, I'm working towards the
Oh,
compliant. This one is not.
Sorry.
Right. I
Because
apologize.
it has lawn, correct?
No, this is.
Oh, what is
all-
that behind there?
It's just all dirt.
Oh, that is all dirt.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe I
So
should skip
if-
ahead to the ones that comply.
yeah, let's just go to look.
Okay. So let me do that.
Although it might be nice to look at non-compliant,
Yeah,
that,
because that one,
that might be acceptable, then when we might say, oh, maybe you should adjust things.
Yeah.
because does that look bad?
If it's maintained, it doesn't.
That's
look
it.
bad.
Well, that's just it. It's all made.
Another one.
Yep.
Looks good.
So here's a compliant property, right, where it's,
Clean and beautiful.
it's all, this is all bark, but then they have, they got the trees and then, just lots of live plant material.
The trees don't count though,
Correct,
just the plant, all the other, the grasses and the,
right. So
and
that's,
this one's been planted for a while because those plants are probably 3 years or 4 years mature.
here's another one that has, mix of lawn, but then also gravel and other plants in it. Another one that's again, a mix of lawn, but then other, planter beds that, cut into that.
They got a clean, beautiful.
They did. You can see where I was looking for pictures, right?
You just asked Craig for a bunch of pictures.
Cruising through some of the award winners, and this is one actually from Jordan Valley. It's not lawn, but just different plant material.
And so when they first planted either the sweet woodruff or the moss on the left-hand side, so it would have been just a bunch of little things like this, but now it's filled in. And that's why I think it's important to, when they first planted it, they would have been out of compliance and what would we have done to them until it grew into where it's this. That's my issue with the final growth, not giving them a ticket when they first planted.
What if they're halfway through the final growth? So in other words, this isn't like a new construction assessment. This
Yeah.
is a code enforcement officer.
right?
And he's trying to say to himself, does that meet the standard and that all the plants are half grown?
Yeah, because he's not gonna know that a nice plant goes to 6
Yeah.
feet.
Or if it's not full grown yet.
They
Right.
don't know what's full grown and what not. That's why I kind
Still
of,
a judgment call. I
yeah,
guess.
and that's what I'd rather not have judgment calls and just say, hey, they've planted. Let's give it a couple years and then, and if they've got weeds that start coming up, then you know they're not taking care of it anyway. So you hit them with the weeds instead of how,
Six
full
needs
growth.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Issue more than.
The percentage, and truthfully, the officers are doing that anyway, right? These calculations are happening at the Steve level. And then our office, unless it's the full asphalt front yard
yeah.
situation, or the second picture where it's 99%. Our officers are doing is it maintained? Does it appear to be in compliance? That kind of thing. They're doing it in the way you would think and the way you would want.
And I will tell you, perennials take a while. Your ground covers and that, it's gonna be 5 years before it's filled in and looks like it's supposed to, like your plan is. So that's another, I don't know how you, unless we keep track of who's putting in registered landscapes with like Jordan Valley or with our inspectors and have them on a list of, give it 5.
I
I
think
don't know how you do that.
I think we can take your intent, if it's the council's intent to count it at the full size, I think we can take that and work with it. Work it into the
Yeah.
situation.
Do you see merit with allowing it to the full size, not the day it was planted?
So I do, I mean,
Yeah,
I look at a tomato that I plant in my garden, It looks like a weed for about 2 months and then all of a sudden, oh, it's this big and tomatoes and everything else. I remember before I ran for council, somebody was complaining to the council that the enforcement officer couldn't tell a weed from a tomato because he cited him for the weeds that were
For tomatoes?
the tomatoes.
Well, and a weed is just a flower out of place. Because all weeds flower. And it's just out of place.
So to your point, Mayor, I think with this example, you have areas that are clearly just rock and then other areas that are planter areas. So you could, say, okay, in the planter areas, you assume that's going to fill in, but in areas that are just rock, there's no plants, you could make that kind of calculation.
Yeah, that's clear.
It's at 30% there.
This is my walkway that looks like that's supposedly the red, but all the green has grown up through it, so.
Yeah, so this one, if I had to guess, at least as of right now, it's under 30, but again, to the mayor's point, if this grows in more, maybe they hit the 30%.
Okay.
Does that benefit of the doubt require a check-in at the height of the growing season or something else to verify or?
Yeah, I mean, well, once you plant them, it takes a good 5 years. So I don't, you just don't want to harass them during the time because honestly, the ones that are coming out to Jordan Valley and taking the classes, they're really trying to be a good citizen and conserve water.
Sure.
That's 90% of the people that come out there. Because it's not cheap. A normal yard to change into local scape can go up to $50,000. You tear out your lawn and better have a pocket. Keep digging into. So people doing these kind of landscapes are spending big bucks.
And I can with relative certainty say that our officers would look at this and see how it's maintained and drive right on by.
that's what I'm hoping.
Yes,
That if there's any question like, oh man, this is only 27%.
I'm, that's not
Well
really
maintained,
how it's
but
working.
yeah,
That's right.
they're not looking at
Yeah.
that.
I agree. If you have and the flip side, if you drive by and it's all gravel and there's no plants at all,
Yeah.
that one's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So to just confirm so far, we're gonna make the change artificial turf to the full. Count the plants as full size when we're doing the calculations to begin with. And then I would propose on the dirt question that we adopt something called decorative dirt. Meaning it sounded like to me that the will of the council, and this is the one I want you to tell me if I'm hearing you right, that dirt that's in the planters, as long as it's kept maintained, and even in some cases decorative, what we would say is decorative dirt is acceptable. So could we go back to the decorative dirt picture?
The cacti.
And the thought there, maybe just verbiage would be if you have dirt in planter beds, maybe that's the acceptable term where it's clear that there's an area where you're, whether it's shrubs or cactus or whatever else, that
I don't know. That's why I want to know, because
Yeah.
I don't have a full understanding of where you're at as a council on that issue. I want to know if you think that is, if you want us to say okay to that, if you want the code to be reflective of that and you want that to be okay.
I'm in favor of saying, okay, for that dirt is acceptable, that, I don't know about the saying that they meet the 30% yet, but
Gotcha.
I don't think that it's the dirt that would cause us to say this is violating.
And decorative dirt then would be completely weed free. What if we made
Yes.
decorative dirt completely weed free? So not even the 6 inches. Decorative dirt is completely weed free.
Intentionally there.
Okay.
Or intentionally green free. So
I go along with Lars about this. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
and they've got 2 trees out there, so it's gonna start getting shade
Good.
eventually.
I've got a neighbor who, in their park strip, they keep it dirt and there's never weeds in it. They go out there once a week, the weeds, and it's just flat as a pancake, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good way to put it. I
Okay.
would never have figured that one out.
I'm
Decorative dirt.
gonna come up with a new definition and we're gonna make it completely
You have to
weed
mark
free
it decorative
and
dirt.
intentionally green free. Yes, intentionally green free,
Intentionally green free, yeah.
except for the 30%.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But so I'm tracking too, maybe is.
Seems like I gotta be able to interpret this,
So you have the area close to the house that just has the trees in it. So,
right?
and then you have the area in front that has plant material in it, but it's intentional plant material, not weeds. Right.
Correct.
Right.
So we're saying both,
Weed free,
both dirt where you have, it's a planter bed with plants is okay, but also dirt that has no plants is also okay.
If it's
It's weed free.
It's weed free.
green free, yeah.
but.
And they still meet the 30%.
Yeah, okay, that was my next question,
Got
but
it.
they still meet the 30%. Okay, great. We can do that. That will require a bit of a tweak to our code. We can make that happen.
Nicole,
Yes, sir.
so
We're both like Nicole's getting crazy. But
how are we gonna enforce the 30%? What's in that percent process?
if we're in a decorative dirt situation,
If somebody is not made 30%, are we gonna?
are you talking about the mechanism for that?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll
Because-
get to that. So we'll get to that question. That's a great question. That's next on our list to discuss how you'd like that as a council.
Yeah, because even 99% of my employees wouldn't be able to tell you how things are gonna grow out.
Right.
So that's why I don't know if it should be 30% or if it should be 10%, knowing that it's gonna grow to 30%.
I think basing the enforcement on the eventual size of the plant is a challenge.
Yeah, it's and I realize that's a
Yeah.
big challenge. And I don't know how you get around it. I mean, we don't have regular meeting and this isn't gonna be set in stone this week, but I mean, a regular meeting next week. Or set in stone that we have to have it in ordinance next week. I don't know if we need to, I don't know. I don't know how other places do that 30%. Or 10% or 20%.
I don't think that
I
I
grow
think that
out.
they're relying on the discretion of their code enforcement officers and their planners to say this needs it or doesn't need it based on my eyeballing. Like I think our folks would look at this and say, oh, some of those cactus are big, some of them are not gonna get much bigger. You're really close. Let me take a look at your things up against the house. It looks good, it's clean, I'm probably good.
So your trumpet vine would count? That's on the railing?
What do you think, guys?
Well,
I don't know.
It's a plant
Steve,
material.
It seems to me it would count.
Yeah, you have that, you have the stuff up against the house, the cannas and stuff.
Yeah. This
Those are
one's
all mature and
perfect.
almost clean, almost finished. I mean,
Yeah.
those are finished growing what's
Yeah.
up against the house. It's just the cactus.
The new stuff, yeah.
Yep.
So this and the cactus, you're right. So this is a perfect picture because it does demonstrate the challenge.
Yeah.
Right? It demonstrates your challenge, your requested challenge, and it demonstrates the challenge of a code enforcement officer.
Mhm.
But we'll have those kinds of things all over the, and my recommendation is let us give it a whirl with regards to anything new that is being put in and that's being calculated at the planner level. We can do it based on we'll do it based on full build out, right? Anything out on the street, we'll counsel with our code enforcement officers with pictures about how that is, and let's test it out.
And we do, for commercial projects, we actually do base it on maturity. The difference is that in commercial projects, you have a professional providing the plan and they actually draw on the plan, the full growth plans, whereas homeowners don't generally do that.
So with our new sustainability person, John, right? So does he go out and counsel with these people when they're applying for grants and that through Jordan Valley, or do they just take the class out there and we have no idea who's doing what?
Well, we would know from Steve's office, not necessarily from John's office, right? So
Okay,
we're
so-
knowing when people are coming in and
Converting.
converting, or where, if they're going for the grants, we're being made aware of those as
Okay.
well, but not through Steve. That's not through Steve's office, but in general, if they're making significant changes like that, we oftentimes will know, not through John Springmeyer though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who's taking care of the water conservation part? I thought we assigned
He
that to somebody.
is, John is, but remember, because those are coming through Jordan Valley and Granger Hunter and the others, they
Okay,
go directly to them. And then if
Okay.
they, like, oftentimes what happens is people are then doing sprinkler systems,
Right.
redoing their sprinkler and water lines and those types of things. And that's how we're being made aware, in addition to our partners are
Okay.
sharing with us who is coming for those.
yeah.
And I
because-
think we'll see a steep increase this next summer.
Yeah,
compared
they've
to
put
last-
enough money
last
out there. So my thing is if they go take the class, they put together, to qualify for those monies, they put together a plan that would give you the
Yep.
full size. So I don't know if we need to scan those in to something that the ordinance enforcement guys can look at.
So with those plans, they just don't submit those to us. It's to
Right.
Jordan Valley. and
So
they-
we'd have to ask.
Sure. We also have lots of capability these days. Turns out there's an app for that as well, as you know, probably, you know better than anyone. You can, if we really had a question and we were really on the street making a decision like this, you can take your phone and have this app and it identifies it and tells you how big it's gonna get. Like, that's
It gives
literally a
you
thing.
Everything. Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So
You just hold it there and it tells you.
if we're
What's the plan?
enforcing on a home based on that, we will direct our officers to facilitate that in that particular way. I can pretty much guarantee you that we're not going to be enforcing upon a home based solely on.
Okay.
There will be other things on that home that we will be enforcing for. If we're, in fact, we could make that one of the protocols. If you're only enforcing on the 30%, then we want you to run that past your supervisor or take extra pictures so we can watch and see how it works.
Because this is probably, let's say it's 20%. But it's well maintained. I would hope our code enforcement would be like. we're
Drive
good,
on by.
Drive by.
My bet is that's exactly what would happen with this house.
After we change the code.
After we change
After
the
we
code,
change the
that's
code,
true,
yeah.
because then there's a lot of dirt there,
Because
that's
a
right.
clean and maintained yard is really what we're after.
Yep.
Right.
It's not.
Yep.
The 30%.
Yep.
Gotta be exactly 30 or over.
Yep,
It's,
that's right.
Yeah,
And
that's
nobody
why,
wants to do that,
No,
right? Like,
no,
that's why I was wondering if we really want it to be 30 or something that's just easier to, yep, I can tell that's 10% or 20% or,
I don't want to do the
Something.
math. Mars does the math. I don't want.
yeah.
I think with our changes here and the decorative dirt discussion, and then the protocol of if you're going to enforce on a home based on the percentage, then we'll have these extra steps,
Okay.
extra picture, run it, we'll just try it. And then if we're still having hiccups, we'll, I don't know, do something else, do the next thing. Okay. Does that sound good?
Say
What do you think?
you can say something.
Yeah, Joe, I was just gonna mention, I'm good with 30%, but that we not issue a citation or force them to get to the 30%. But if there are other issues,
It's kind of like the seatbelt law.
yeah,
You can't stop them for not having the seatbelt, but if they're doing something else, you can cite them.
You can, yeah, if they're speeding.
Okay, hold on, what?
In the past, if you didn't have your
Past.
seatbelt on, they've changed it now, but if you
Yeah.
didn't have your seatbelt on, they couldn't pull you over just for seatbelt. You had to have run a red light, run a stop sign,
Speeding.
be speeding.
Okay, so
Or doing
no
it-
turn. How about our protocol is if you're only, you're not getting pulled over only for percentage?
Correct.
Okay,
Then we just drive on by, let it go.
that sounds like a great idea.
Yep. If they have an inoperable car in the driveway, then maybe. But even if the yard looks like
That's 'cause they're
that
putting so
nice.
much Time into the yard.
yard, yeah, but if the yard looks nice like this, I just don't even. You just drive on by. You don't worry about 20 or 30%.
Great. If it's literally only percentages,
Just let it go.
that's not a, there's a legal term for that. I can't remember what it is.
Primary and secondary.
Thank you. That's not a primary offense. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay,
Well,
excellent.
that's- See, you're coming up
Very
with all the good
good.
words.
We did, we made it. Okay, so then do we need to keep looking at the pictures here as we go through the next two sentences?
I'm sure the next two.
So front setback, this is
Okay.
what we would propose.
So this is the 6-inch rule, which nothing, no weeds or grass more than 6 inches, correct? And then the 60% rule,
Is the rule we're just discussing, except for that it's not a primary offense.
okay,
But actually, that's not true because the 60% rule actually goes to the parking on the lawn, that kind of thing. It's making sure that the parking is happening where parking happens and landscaping is happening where landscaping happens. So that percentage, I would say we should talk about and enforce because parking in non-parking spaces is a big issue.
but I think that's different than this.
That goes down a service.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
think it goes down,
That's,
yeah, in
that's true.
servicing.
There was a mix in this proposal.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
so I don't
So wanna
think
talk
we
about
even
that?
worry about parking in with landscaping.
All right, good.
So I think we take that whole thing out. Let's see, 60%.
Yeah, we'll put that down below in the parking spot.
Right, so should we start up there then with the parking or is there, let's
It's
see.
further down in our little,
So 30% violations, no enforcement, city will not seek a court order to install or fertilize or water your plants. Dang, it's going for free fertilizing and watering in order to achieve the 30%. So that all sounds right.
I'm sorry.
The city will not seek a court order through NOV
Yep, okay.
to install this materials for you. So they
Yes,
maybe,
that's true.
yeah,
that's
so
right,
because
that's
we're
right.
not gonna make it a primary offense, we don't have to worry about this part, right? Or do we still?
Well, I think we. Let me just read it real quick here. Sorry.
It's
The
okay.
city will not seek a court order through NLD process. That's all gonna be true no matter what, yes, and same, okay, so that's true protocol, but it's true for two reasons. First, because it's not a primary offense, and second, because we're not gonna do that anyway, right? Because if we did that, it would be the billions of dollars and tons of houses, okay, so. Yes, but for two reasons,
Yeah.
okay. And then the 6-inch rule. Courtesy notice over the 2 weekends.
Right. And that's just the tall grass and weeds.
But we will abate in the worst situations there. That's what that second sentence means. The city will seek a court order through the NOV process to remove grass and weeds in excess of 6 inches.
So if they ignore our courtesy notice.
And then
or
the,
LV, then
And they go all through the process.
they go through the process.
so that gives
You're
them
okay?
4 weekends to figure it out, correct?
Yeah, or at least.
Get a mower.
It's
and
gonna
mow
be
it down.
even way longer.
Or a
than
weed eater to
Yeah.
clip it out of your fencing.
Ultimately, it truly is gonna be longer than that because it just
Yeah.
takes time. Right?
Well, it would take that much time just to go through this
Yeah,
process.
that's right.
So if they can't do it in that much time. Okay,
Okay. All right, or
yeah, that's what I'm reading.
I think the mix-up Nicole, is whether or not we're going to issue an administrative citation. Because we can't do anything for the court ordered a notice of violation to go remove or add something. The only thing we have left to do is either not do anything or issue them the administrative citation saying you are not in compliance with 30%.
Which is like,
And
Yeah, but
which
we're
is a
not,
speeding ticket.
right,
We're not going to enforce the 30%
well,
rule.
not on its own, right? That's not a prime, you're not gonna do it, you're not gonna enforce against a person just for that.
Well, unless we do an administrative citation, there's nothing else we can. Right?
Well, if they have weeds that are 6 inches or higher, or if there's bulky waste, or if there's an inoperable vehicle, right, council, that's what you're saying to us.
yes, yep,
Yeah.
but
So-
just for
So
30%.
the paper says, 30% violation is no enforcement, but we're changing that to say it's a secondary offense and we enforce it if
We have other problems.
if there's other problems, but we enforce it through the courtesy notice and the NOV process. Administrative,
Yeah, there's nothing to enforce. We're not going to,
We're not gonna go plant material.
all we can do is write them a citation, says you're in violation, have a nice day. Maybe we'll be back next week, next month. That's all we can do. And whether you want to do that.
And remember, the administrative warning is like a fix-it ticket.
It's like
originally.
$50.
Like
What
fix
was
it
it?
right now.
Yeah, and I can't remember what the
Actual
penalty was.
citation's $100.
So notice of violations are $25 a day per violation.
Yes. But administrative warnings are the $100.
This is the actual citation. The warnings. $3.
Sorry, the administrative citations, I'm sorry,
The
yes.
first one's $100, the second one's $200, and the third one is $400.
But $400 is no longer allowed.
It seemed.
It
to
says
me
down
that-
here,
It seemed to me that's not what council wanted, so I eliminated.
no further administratives will be issued for the same violation. Same violation per calendar limit, eliminate the current third 400. Okay. There was a state code in there somewhere, so I thought the state code took out the 400. But it just placed the maximum fine is the $1,000 per day, which to me is just a waste of time. But, okay, let's go back up to. So would you like to? I guess I don't ever want an enforcement to just be over 30%. First, second, third.
All right, let's just address,
But
let's just get
who-
back to that, yeah.
Who has an issue with if it's 20% or 30%? Enforcing the 30%. It's just so subjective and final plant growth, it just gives me pause.
Understand what that means. If we're not gonna enforce the 30%, that means we really, what Lane's really saying is we really shouldn't have a requirement. Right? Because there's nothing we can do to help you as a
Right.
council. If you want a certain amount of green on the front, green and growing, or the other things that are here, that is our method for doing that. If we say we're not gonna do that, then that means there is no requirement really. Now that to the point Scott made earlier, that doesn't mean people aren't gonna do it. People will want their yards, some of them, to look nice and have stuff, but in enforcement world, what we're dealing with is the people who aren't doing that naturally, right?
And sorry. I would be okay with a Arizona rock garden in somebody's front yard if it's clean and maintained
And no weeds.
and no weeds. We are the second driest state in the country, so we need to probably look more like Arizona especially our drought years, but what are you gonna say?
On the enforcement, so if it's a primary, wouldn't do anything, but if it's a secondary, are you saying we wouldn't even do a courtesy notice?
So here's what I think we kind of settled on. I'll repeat it. You guys tell me if I've got it wrong. So if it were the only thing, if the yard looked beautiful and it had some plants and it appears to be close, and there's no weeds, and there's no inoperable vehicle, and there's no couch on the driveway, and there's no tires in the thing, and it looks nice, then but let's say it only has one tree and two bushes and they're only half grown. Then that will not be an enforcement issue, because that's the only thing wrong, and you can't get pulled over for no seatbelt. But if they have that and tires on the driveway and more than 6-inch high weeds and an inoperable vehicle, then we're gonna enforce all of it, including the 30%.
So if somebody had, back to my rock garden,
Okay.
it was all gravel and rocks. But they kept everything clean and nice, we would never issue them a courtesy notice unless we saw a tire or some other infraction on their property. And then we come down and say, sorry, now you've got to put 30% in, now that we've caught you on this other thing.
Right,
Now you've got to put 30% live material in, and so I'm leaning.
which means
See?
then just decide the 30, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna
30%
say,
or not.
I'm not comfortable with, okay, I found a tire, so now I'm gonna pile 26 things on it. Just go for the obvious. Don't look for more. Just take care of the obvious. And then if next week they have something besides a tire. But this one, just in my brain, realizing that nobody's gonna know what full growth is, it's just gonna be so hard to enforce. I think in our ordinance, we still kind of recommend that we have 30% living, unless it's all turf grass.
We could just
But-
require it and not enforce. You could
Yeah.
just say that is not an enforceable code section through code enforcement. We could still have the requirement.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah,
it.
I think that'll
Yeah,
just
that'd be better.
But that equals no,
clear the muddy water.
that equals no enforcement, right?
Right.
Right.
But if they have 6-inch weeds, we'll enforce it.
Yeah.
If they have 6-inch or more lawn, we'll enforce it. Right? If they don't mow their lawn, they don't pull their weeds.
If
Well,
they're,
really,
if
all
their
that-
stuff
and
gets
the tires,
overgrown,
everything else
everything
is-
else,
yeah.
right? Including, you still have to have the appropriate amount of hardscape
Yes.
parking and other stuff,
Right.
right? What that other stuff is, I guess it could be just
Open.
a big dirt
Or,
front yard,
or
as long as there's no,
gravel, or, yeah,
right? As long as there's no weeds,
yes, with,
decorative dirt front yard.
with zero green, intentionally to
But not
zero green.
asphalt.
not
Yeah,
asphalt.
that's last.
Right.
Paint it green. It's artificial turf.
And on, yeah, anyway,
Okay,
So we.
Okay,
we
so that's
So
the
you
will
comfortable
of the
there?
council.
Yeah.
okay, we're
Okay,
comfortable,
I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay,
So that will
Thanks, Steven.
require, let's see, no, that won't require a code change, will just be a procedure change, correct? Yep. Okay.
except for the dirt part, right? The
Well,
decorative
yes,
dirt.
we have some
But yeah,
other code changes. We'll still
Yeah.
change the artificial turf. We'll still change the, well,
decorative dirt,
yeah, and the decorative dirt, yeah. Okay. Okay,
now
I got it.
surfacing,
Okay. Steve, I think,
Yeah, if you like, I can just briefly go through what's in the code now.
yeah, that's,
So for an interior lot, so one that's not like a cul-de-sac lot or on a major street, the cap is you can have up to 40% of the front yard be a hard surface. So that hard surface includes concrete, asphalt, or gravel if you're parking on it. So that's where there's the landscaping and parking crossover. So generally how that's enforced is if it's gravel, no one's parking on, it's considered landscaping, but as soon as they park on it, it's considered parking. So again, 40% for most lots, but then there is an exception for a cul-de-sac because you have that kind of pie shape. So you need a little more wiggle room. And then also on lots that are on a road like 4100 South, they could have a circular driveway. So they need a little more pavement percentage to do a circular driveway. And then what we're saying here in that last part, again, just to reiterate, is that gravel is counted towards the 40 or 50% if it's used as the parking in the front yard.
so I've got a neighbor who has gravel. They don't park on it, but they drive on it to the back where they have asphalt. Is that, you consider that?
That's
Driveway
It would be the
surface?
maneuvering, yeah, because it does say parking and maneuvering in the front yard. Yeah.
And we changed the ordinance a long time ago, that you had to have either pavers or something marking if you're gonna drive back there all the time to get your RV,
Right.
correct?
Right, that you weren't just driving over grass.
Yeah. When we did the whole gravel thing, we changed that.
Then how about a weed barrier under the rock? Is that required?
It's not.
And then we have a minimum of 3 or 4 inches of gravel.
I believe it's 4 inches is what we require.
And so, again, same neighbor, they put in 4 inches, but now after driving over it for 10 years, now if you went and measured it, it would be 2 inches and
I think from a practical standpoint in enforcement, if it's gotten to the point where it's dirt, that's where I think the enforcement would happen.
okay, that
Or
makes
weeds
sense.
in it.
That makes sense.
And it's a
In
certain
ground-
diameter of gravel. Was that a thing or was that,
We do have, I have to.
like, I don't need the number, but there is a standard.
There's a spec for it. It's meant to be compacted and you have some kind of a durable border. So for example, if it's up against the driveway, so you don't just have like grass coming up against gravel, so it just sort of bleeds together. You have some kind of edging around it.
Put a 2x4 to separate it or something.
I'm good.
And ground cloth doesn't really do any good because dirt grows in or blows in onto your rocks and then seeds, and they don't need much to grow. So ground cloth isn't a solution.
Okay, so on the surfacing, front yard setback, enforced, side yard, no enforcement, rear yard, no enforcement. Everybody good so far? Okay. And notice here, we also suggest that we would seek ultimately a court order and an NOV through the NOV process for the abatement. In this case, so just making sure council is okay with the abatement process here as well.
So if they continue to park on their lawn,
That's one down.
instead of on a hard surface, is that when you, I mean, when would you abate it?
Okay, so abatement is the first picture, yes. If this guy doesn't take his asphalt out, we're gonna go take it out for him by court order at some point. Right? What you're talking about is, as Don said, the next one, which is, that's more like a ticket that you issue. It's a ticket that fix this right now. You're parking on the wrong thing. This is your fix it ticket kind of a thing. Yeah.
So
That makes
we're pulling that out because of the 40% rule.
Right.
Yeah,
They get to pick which 40% or 60% we pull out.
Well, I think we made them pull this out and they did it.
Fortunately, they did it in this case.
yeah, it's one of those, always ask first.
Yeah.
And that's why when we were doing the trailers parked in the front yard or the back part, you know, there were people that did come and ask and we said, oh yeah, right now, good.
Yeah.
So what about things like that that were put in before the city became a city?
Things like
They-
this.
Say somebody has a fully 100% concrete front yard because that's what the county allowed. They've had it since we're a city. Does it really make sense to go have them take it out now?
You know, I think we had a few of those come when we were talking about the hard surfacing, if I recall. And of course, before the legal answer is before an ordinance, if it was legally in place before an ordinance, then it's grandfathered. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong there was some talk during that hard surfacing discussion at the council level. We didn't put in a special rule when we made that change, right?
There is some language about if you had like a dirt driveway that was really old, that you could just use gravel and that could, because right now, if you're doing new, your driveway has to be paved, right? And then anything above the minimum can be gravel. If memory serves, we put in a provision that said if you had dirt, you could have that just be gravel if it was that way for, again, pre-ordinance.
So I think that was, and my memory is so sort of good, but not all the way. I think that was what the one exception. So the legal answer is if it was legally that way before, meaning under the county rule or under, you know,
Anything.
homesteading rules.
Right. Well,
Then
there's
it's
places
okay.
that are
There,
homestead.
there are, and what would happen in that process, what would happen in that situation, as you're aware, Mayor, is exactly what we talked about before. We would probably issue the citation. They would come and say, oh no, been here 75 years and go check on this, I had a permit for that, whatever they say.
Right.
And then we look it up, and most of the time from the county records, we can parse that together and demonstrate that that's either accurate or inaccurate. So then that would happen in the courtesy notice process. right?
Okay, they would just call in and say, nope, been here since the beginning of time. leave
Yeah.
me alone.
Yeah, they would. And I think we probably have been the rounds with the most of those that exist out there, I would
Mhm.
suspect. So probably not a very frequent thing.
So here's what the code actually says. Residential dirt driveways in existence as of April 1st, 2010 that have never been hard surface or gravel may be surfaced with gravel.
Okay. And concrete that was there before 1980 can stay there?
It depends on if it were legally put in to begin with, right?
Yeah.
If that were the rule under the county regulation, then technically legally,
I was gonna say. I didn't
they
think
would
the
be
county-
grandfathered.
Yeah, I don't think the county had those.
And right. So it probably isn't a true grandfathering situation.
Well, and that's the whole thing, because the county didn't really have regulations. If it was allowed then, and it's been going for 40 years,
Then
why
that's-
would we ask them to take it out now?
We wouldn't, that would be grandfathered if it were allowed then, meaning it was legal then.
Would be cool.
Unless they put AstroTurf on top of it, then it's okay.
Yeah. At this point, I'm not sure. No,
Sorry,
I'm just kidding.
Nico, but like all the people, the senior people, they sometimes they have a hard time to find out where the, on internet and stuff like that. Is that we are willing to have them out, try to find out?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. Steve takes those calls all the time. Yeah,
Walks them through.
okay,
Okay, so is everybody comfortable
on the surfacing?
the surfacing so far?
Good.
No objections? Okay. Get to the fence or no, the sidewalk, and then we might be done. All right. Obstruction of the sidewalk. So vegetation. Oh, yeah. I'll have a seat. So there's plenty of places that you try and walk on the sidewalk and their bushes come out, reach out and touch you. That's why some people walk in the road. So it is the residents' obligation to cut that back,
Keep the
correct?
sidewalk clear.
Yeah.
And passable.
And that is from and above limbs that are hitting you in the forehead and to the sides, correct?
Yeah.
7 feet.
7 feet is. Okay, thank you. Then on the fences. Tell me who puts a fence over a sidewalk? Explain that one to me.
Nope, no, this is a separate, this is. Right?
Obstruction of
This is just
sidewalk.
Fences. Oh, they lean. Oh,
They
they're leaning
lean.
onto the sidewalk.
Yeah, there
Thank
was
you.
something in here that said,
Within 20 degrees under the
Yes.
fence
Yes, I'm
part.
sorry.
Yes.
20 degree.
that's all the fence.
That's just any fence.
That's just.
This is fence that's over a sidewalk.
Yes, sir.
Right.
That's correct.
So this is not a fence over a sidewalk. This is just saying if it's leaning into the sidewalk, then
I think
we'll
this
have
one
them fix
was
it.
meant, I'm sorry, this one was meant to be obstruction of the sidewalk fence discussion. We have the fence
Okay,
regulations also, but this one was related to that.
okay, so
I
go down
misread
to
that.
fences when I,
Yeah,
okay,
we'll get there. So if you're okay with obstruction of sidewalk by anything, limbs and fences, and the methods by which we would enforce.
and so I'm trying to figure out the vehicles. Are people just daily going over the sidewalk?
Yeah, and we get complaints about that. So we'll oftentimes have a situation where the kids are walking to school or there's a handicapped person in the neighborhood that people get concerned about.
Right.
And so when they can't get their wheelchair passed, or when the kids can't stay, when the kids have to go out and around, that's when we get complaints. So yep, it is just daily. They'll have cars parked right over the sidewalk. And that is more of again, that's a perfect example of administrative warning and administrative citation use, because that's not we will give you 10 days over 2 weeks to fix this. over
Because,
2
I mean, I
weekends.
read it in here somewhere, because they move the car every day to go to work, and then they bring it back and just put it back in the same situation.
That's why that
Okay.
administrative warning tool is an essential part of this, because it's more of you need to just move that out of the way.
Okay, so this will be, the punishment will be the administrative warnings.
Yes, so
Give 'em
obstruction
the-
of the sidewalk
a
is either a
courtesy
courtesy
notice.
or an administrative warning.
Right.
So if it's something that you have to cut back instead of like a car or the fence is down,
Right.
they might give them a courtesy notice instead of administrative.
Okay,
Does that
Well,
sound good? Does that
I would
sound
feel
right?
comfortable giving everybody the courtesy notice just to educate, even if their car is blocking the sidewalk. But then within so much time, give them the administrative warning, because it's probably been going on long enough that another 10 days isn't gonna break the neighborhood. But then go to the administrative warnings, because we have so many cultures that don't understand all the rules and haven't sat through these kind of meetings to even have that knowledge that their bumper can't be over the sidewalk.
So I hear you. The only thing I would suggest is because that's typically complaint driven, you're gonna have a lot of mad people, mad
Well-
moms who say, my people still can't get through.
Yeah.
If we're
But-
okay as a council, I'm okay. I'll take your
So
intent.
there's administrative warning and administrative citation, right?
Yes.
And the courtesy notice and the administrative warning to me are both the same.
Same.
About the same.
It's an education
Except I
process.
think the courtesy notice says you have 2 weeks to fix this. We don't want to give them that if they're parking over the sidewalk.
But I wouldn't want to give them a citation until they've been educated.
So are you okay with administrative warning first, which is
I
a
don't-
move it
I-
right now,
Well, I don't know
but no
why,
fine?
right. As long as there's no fine and it's an education process,
But it would be a step up from a courtesy warning because
would it be,
I think the administrative warning, don't they have to clear it up fairly quickly?
No, it's
Yeah.
like a fix a ticket, but with no fine. So it is the same as a courtesy notice in the, but in
the
the,
fill of it?
yes,
It's not a fine,
yes.
but it's, please do this immediately, not take 3 weeks. Okay, I can live with that.
10 days to
No,
3 weeks to figure out how to park off the sidewalk.
You
so
okay-
the,
are you okay
yeah,
with
it's
that?
the administrative citations that I don't want to go right to. So,
So
yeah, that's fine.
first- Okay, so.
But I'm just one, so everybody else.
Should parking enforcement take care of cars that are obstructing sidewalk instead of code
So
enforcement?
police used to do it if they're over the sidewalk, if they're on private property. No, police did it on the street and code enforcement has always done it on the property.
The question of could they, I don't know the answer, sir. I'd have to check that, but I think that's how we've kept it separated. But it's a good question. I'm happy to find out the answer and
Okay.
reply back to the council.
Because I had one officer that said he used to just spend, if he had any dead time at night, he would go around to a neighborhood and put a ticket on all the cars that were hanging over or parked illegally. But now we've taken that away from them because of parking. So that's not getting done as much because the cars leave during the day and parking doesn't see it. And so having police do that at night, but once they got parking, they separated that. So police don't do that at night, which I don't entirely agree with, but that's just because that's when you catch
Because
it
if parking is only being enforced
from 9 to 5.
during the day.
Yeah.
Then we're missing out on a lot of things that probably should be enforced.
I'll ask that question and get an answer to the council this week by email. I'll send that out.
Okay.
And see if we can do.
Yeah.
The chief is thinking how glad he is he didn't have to go through the standard of cover with all these.
Can I just double check intent on the administrative warnings then? On a sidewalk on everything that obstructs a sidewalk except for a car, we'll go through the courtesy notice. If it's
Yes,
a vehicle, we want to issue an administrative warning. Can we do that like the first time and then go to the administrative citation the next time? Is that council intent?
I like that.
Okay. First offense is administrative warning and then to a administrative citation. Okay. Got it. And the rest of that, are you all okay with? Is that, can I sign off on that? Okay, and same with.
anybody else have any
fences?
problems with anything else on that one?
I'm just, there's sometimes when we have snow on the road and they can't park on the street. But they just barely fit on in the driveway, maybe a few inches or over the sidewalk. During, when there's snow on the street, can we be a little more lenient to
So when it's a
to
blue day,
parking in the, a little bit over the sidewalk?
I'd rather have them encroaching on the sidewalk than out in the street where we can't. plow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm asking for a friend, I'm just.
Yes, because this is just protocol, I think we should have.
Our
Yeah.
plow driver took care of it. He just piled his
Snow.
load right in front of the
Front of your house.
mailbox.
oh, there you go.
Or the walkway would be if I had a sidewalk, but I don't have a sidewalk.
Big sidewalk on your
Street
street.
sidewalk over there.
Okay, so we just have, oh no, so we'll do fences because it correlated with the sidewalks and then we'll finish this up next week. If everybody's okay with that. Right.
Good idea.
All right, fences. So I was not totally understanding why we had the 20-degree vertical. So thank you for that explanation. What does everybody think about this one?
One of the concerns I have is that we've got several block fences in our community, cinder block, cement block fences. They get tagged and we go out and take care of them.
Unless they're private, and then they have to take care of them.
We give them the stuff to take care of it.
Correct.
And it's not the same color. It's not even near the same color.
Because we only give them gray
Yeah,
or whatever's cheap from somewhere. I don't know where we get our paint, but it's always amusing colors, but I don't know that we have the money to go buy color specific paint.
but it says with similar material and color.
Yeah, and we can ratchet up our enforcement on that. We just say we want more enforcement on that.
Well, and my issue is something happening to these people, not something they're choosing. And so the fact that they're clearing it up fast, I don't care what color their paint is on their fence. Maybe I should, but I'd rather have the graffiti.
I'd
Covered
rather
up.
have the graffiti painted out too,
Yeah,
but then we're putting them in violation because it's not the same
right.
color.
And I don't think we should. They've already been violated.
Yeah.
And at their expense, these little stinkers are making them spend time and money. But that's just me. Everybody else has an opinion. Because you can also sandblast it, but it's really hard to find somebody that has a high pressure cleaning system to blast it off or a sandblaster.
And they blast off the color that was there before anyway.
Yeah. No, most brick is colored all the way through.
Unless they repainted it,
Well, I mean, no, the brick itself, once you sandblast it, it's the same color all the way through the brick.
unless they repainted the fence,
Oh,
tagged over it.
yeah. Because when we paint it on city property, we don't match it and we don't make sure it's the same material and the same anything. And I think that's a burden we shouldn't put on the residents because we're not willing to do it. If you look anywhere we go over graffiti, we don't match what's there.
And I've seen some wood fences that,
They,
they may have the aged wood, on these sections, but the one that fell down or got replaced is new wood and
right,
kind of like the edge of the table on top.
one's faded and one hasn't.
Yeah,
So they try to.
So should we get rid of the similar color? The material would be similar,
Yeah.
but just get rid of the color is what you're thinking?
well, I think if we're, we have to look at it. If we're gonna do this to the residents and we have to do it to the city.
For the
too.
city, yeah.
You could just
So-
direct us to not enforce on graffiti cover-up situations. I mean, we have,
Because honestly, even when they sandblast their fence, it's like that 6 inches sandblasted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Graffiti is technically still there.
Yeah, but it's just not giving their tag line. So what's everybody else's feelings on that one?
Separate code on graffiti.
separate from
Separate-
this.
Code
Yeah,
enforcement.
separate-
Yes, this is just related to the fences, so there is
I
a.
think fences, we can,
Code.
common sense is that we have similar material and color in the fencing. So whether it's cinder block or
Right.
vinyl, similar material and color.
And it's installed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and if they painted it and it's, maybe they use paint that's not the same color, but it's similar. It's not like it's black and white. You know, maybe it is, but hopefully not.
The one
I think
white
graffiti
fence
is
on
a separate-
Continental that I'm thinking
separate
of, when it gets painted over, it's usually a dark gray.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but
Anybody object to just taking color off there? Or enforcing color? If we're not gonna enforce it, I'd rather it not be in there.
Yeah.
In the, we could put it in the regulation that says when you build a fence, it needs to be similar material and cover, but for enforcement on code enforcement, I think color should be taken off. These aren't one and the same. Our building code,
This is the fence requirement that we're enforcing. Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
okay with similar color and material. I just think we address it separately in a graffiti.
graffiti, yeah, on new
Or you
build,
just tell us the protocol is you don't want the graffiti cover up to be enforced.
Okay,
And we
But
say,
some
okay,
people cover up their graffiti in a way that looks pretty bad.
it looks worse than graffiti. Some,
And I don't know that we want to allow that.
Allow what?
if we could catch all the kids and make them come repaint it, it'd be awesome, but I just don't know that everybody has the means to totally repaint it every time and they get hit multiple times. Sure, you put a camera on it, then they stop a little bit more.
can we push pause on this and then look at graffiti with this next time?
sure, we could even
Okay.
probably have some good pictures that would help us get a
Okay.
feel for what we're
Yeah.
talking about here.
Okay.
So we'll make sure we're ready in a Steve fashion as we go for the rest of them to talk about it.
Okay. So we have, that was hard work. We'll have 30 seconds to get rid of, get through the rest. Our 30-minute code enforcement, a little longer. So anybody have any problems with the calendar? Okay, none? Potential future agenda items?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay,
I'm thinking about the form of government. They email it out, email out
Oh,
the
yeah.
information already, so we look at over a week now, so to put together something we can put on agenda, so we can vote up or down for that.
okay,
any-
so a communication item next week,
So we do
Okay.
that.
does that work?
Great.
Okay,
I've got, one of the other ideas on the strategic discussion list was an archivist.
oh, yeah,
Whether or not that would be beneficial, what to do with all these things. I still got a box of shirts at my house that I'd like to get to the city.
so can we put that one on in like 2 weeks? Just kind of spread them out?
Yeah.
Okay, so the archivist at the cultural center. I'm gonna try.
Parks and Rec or someplace.
Okay, anybody have a council report?
One quick thing, I looked and none of us are representing us on Western Growth Coalition. But,
Is that the West Side Mayor thing?
yeah, well, it's mayor, councilman, whatever. But I got the notice of next week's meeting and it said the future of the Western Growth Coalition. So they might be looking at disbanding that. We may want to have somebody there next Monday just to see what's happening and
Okay,
cover our anatomy.
What time now?
4 o'clock in West Jordan.
okay. Do you are you volunteering to go or do you want somebody to volunteer to go?
I've been there in the past. They know who I am. I'm not volunteering, but. But if
Will you accept the
if you
assignment?
ask me to go, I'll go.
Okay, we'll give you the assignment.
Okay.
I have time to go, but you know what it is, so I'll just let you go. Hey, council report, I apologize. They had my hometown recital last Thursday, and I didn't even think to send everybody out an announcement. So I'll try and do better in the future. But when we find those, we need to see if we can get them on the calendar. It's,
Didn't see it.
did anybody, well, nobody else was there, so I figured it wasn't on the calendar.
Yeah, we'll double
I'll
check
give
that,
you
but
grace on that one. Okay,
We will. We'll get all those.
yeah, because again, it was phenomenal. Was not? Okay, so we need to make sure those go on.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's Jim Phillips that usually sends out that email. Jim Phillips, I think.
We can get them through.
Double.
Craig.
I'll reach out.
Get him through Craig. It was really phenomenal. They did a little play. It was. Okay, strategic plan list. Well, good. We don't need a closed session, do we?
Don't, ma'am, but I'm sorry if I could just do one more potential future
Sure.
agenda item that's time sensitive. I apologize. The Healthy West Valley proposal, we have from the group that's the committee right now, a proposal to come together as a formal committee, adopt a health in all policies proclamation and encourage, there's a proclamation that goes along with that, that allows us to get some grant money.
Okay,
I'd like to be able to put that on the agenda for your consideration next week if the council's amenable to that
yeah, and we don't have a regular meeting, so we'll study it and study.
study.
So we'll have plenty of time if we go over to finish code enforcement, do some of those others. So
Is that okay?
yeah, I think that would work. Anybody have an objection?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Like, do you have an objection? Yes, I do. Okay. Sorry. All right, we're good. Anybody else have anything I've hurried over because we did get in the other room?
Let's do adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Fine.
We are adjourned and we will be late. Sorry.